Okay, sometimes they change the way things happen when you're recording, and that just happened right there. Didn't see that one coming. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside the All 32 Pod, Week 7 in full effect. Will fired up for it. A reminder to everybody: the show brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network, and Game Time. Best tickets, best prices to get you into any event that you want to go. We use them all. We love them all. You should too. Let's jump right into this because, Will, we got a Super Bowl rematch. We have the Chiefs, who are undefeated coming off a bye, and the 49ers. I don't know how you're not fired up for this game. These are two good teams, even if maybe we haven't seen their best just yet.
Yeah, both teams have San Francisco's lost some of the games that like Kansas City probably should have lost that they didn't. Both teams are pretty much what we thought. Both defenses are really good. Both quarterbacks are really good. Obviously, Mahomes is on a different level, although he has not played great ball by any means. Chiefs got a lot of injuries. The Niners got a lot of injuries. But both these teams you probably expect still at this point. If you told me this was the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked. So I'm excited for this matchup. I want to see where San Francisco's at. I think Kansas City's built themselves a little bit of a buffer. Everyone else in the AFC, even the really good teams, have lost games they probably shouldn't have. Kansas City's won all the games they should have, and probably some of the ones they shouldn't have. If they lost this game non-conference, doesn't fully affect them too much. San Francisco obviously can go on the road in the playoffs. We've seen them do it, but you don't want to start falling further and further behind where you're now like, hey, we're going to win this division probably still, but we're like the 4 seed or we're the 3 seed or the NFC East. God knows who.
Yeah.
God knows if that division will get to 8 wins, but yeah, like, do the Niners want to be the 3 seed playing the 6 seed Packers? Probably not. They'd probably much rather get to that. Can they get to the 2? And can they, handle the bad Cowboys team or something like that? This matters more to me for San Francisco. Obviously, also coming off the loss last year, and they've really struggled. They build these leads, and it just starts to kind of crumble. Even last week, for our friend Kyle Brandt was tweeting, he was like, I could not trust them to finish this game at any less. And again, they figured it out. But yeah, Kansas City, like, does it really matter what we see from them right now? Like, Mahomes has 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, and no one cares, right? Like, that's where it's hard for me to, like, he threw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns this week. Mike would go, wow, that was really awesome. And if he doesn't and he plays terribly, it would be like, they're probably still my pick from the AFC until proven otherwise.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned the Mahomes thing, right? This is the fewest passing yards that he has averaged through 6 games since he's become the starter in 2018. They're running the ball for more yards than they've ever run with him as the quarterback. And this is sort of the morphing of the offense, especially with some of the bodies, and obviously losing Rashee Rice. Hollywood Brown was supposed to be a big part of this. They never got any of Hollywood Brown this year. With the shoulder injury, Rice likely done for the year. It'd be surprising if he's not. And the other thing is they're getting to the red zone. 18 red zone trips, just 7 touchdowns. That is 29th in the league. And that's one of those things where, Kelsey doesn't have a touchdown. You just feel like that'll eventually change. He'll eventually develop some trust with some of these other guys. Juju Smith-Schuster, come back from the dead, had a 7-catch, 130-yard game 2 weeks ago. Like, they just find ways to get it done. And I'm curious to see how they'll approach
Juju hitting everyone with, like, no one believed in me. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
I love you, buddy. But, like, no one believed in your knees because
yeah. I mean, look, we saw it up close and personal. I reported it before they even signed him. In fact, one of the reasons why Kansas City didn't really make a real effort to sign him 2 years ago when he was headed to free agency was because they knew what the knee was. But desperate times call for desperate measures. He knows the system. He comes in there and look, no one's paying attention to him. Like, he's so far down the list of people that teams are worried about that he had a big game. So we'll see if he can sort of maintain that level. I highly doubt it. But again, they don't have a lot of pass catchers that Mahomes trusts at this point. I'm also, you mentioned the 49ers aspect of this thing. Their offense has been different this year. And it's part of the growth of Purdy, right? Where pushing the ball down the field more. He averages 2 times as many downfield passes, which is 10 or more air yards than Mahomes does, which again, you go into the year and yeah, they have some weapons and they can do some things schematically, but you would never say Brock Purdy's going to be throwing 2 times as many of those throws that Mahomes is. But that just goes to show you the trust that Shanahan has in him. And look, it's not always perfect. Occasionally, I know he's been accused at times by the San Francisco media of trying to play hero ball, but I think he's playing pretty well. And if he's not in that Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson conversation, but is he in the next tier of quarterbacks? And I always put Rodgers sort of in his own sort of category here at 40, and he can still throw the ball as well as anybody, but he to me he's like in that conversation of someone that I trust, and I think they trust him, and I think it's sort of borne out over how they've approached this. But to your larger point, it's a big game for San Fran. Don't be 3-4. They've cost themselves some spots already this year and some wins, and you don't want to do that again. Let's move on to a team that's kept you awfully busy. You were on assignment on Monday, which is to say you were in the stands for Jets Bills. I mean, we texted a little bit briefly afterwards. That was a disappointing loss, a bad loss, and then immediately the Jets turn around and they trade for Davante Adams. So I guess I want to start there because we've had this conversation dating back to the summer. And then even more recently when I said, it feels like they're not able to unlock parts of the field with Rodgers because of some of the receivers. In your mind, is Davante Adams his insertion in the lineup? And let's just assume he's the guy he was the start of this year in Vegas before the injuries. Is he that guy that's capable of doing that for this offense?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. This trade, by all reports, I got home at 2:30 from MetLife. We know, the drive. I got a bunch of texts. He's on his way here. Be ready to pod in the morning. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's nice. Apparently the deal was done before the game even started. He was already on his way, to Jersey / New York. This has obviously been in the mix. The Jets apparently offered 2 second-round picks for him a year ago at this time. The Raiders hung up the phone. Idiotic then. It's even more idiotic now looking at the value they got. They paid Davante like $30 million in cash and got a conditional pick that the Jets have to reach the title game, and Davante has to be an all-pro. He's missed 3 weeks. He's not going to be an all-pro this year unless he goes on some crazy run here. So the Raiders, I thought, mishandled this totally. And Davante he clearly had a horrible time in Vegas. I mean, some of the commentary from Kay Adams' show and his weekly presser with the Jets now last week, it was like they didn't throw me the ball. And when they did throw me the ball, they were trying to get me killed. They're not a bad organization, but I clearly don't like the coach and hated the quarterbacks and hated the schemes. Yeah. Again, it's a little. I'm not going to give him a total pass. He forced his way out in a sense, and the Packers weren't going to pay him, and I don't blame him. But he got what he wanted. He went to play with Derek Carr, and we got some interesting info that the Chiefs were never involved, which that was a big time rumor. It seemed like Buffalo. I had heard a week or two ago that Amari Cooper would be a Bill, Davante would be a Jet, and it's just a matter of time. We saw both those guys. I think Davante helps the Jets a lot. I think the notion that he doesn't help and he's not some huge difference maker is insane to me. I understand the Jets might not be quite as good as maybe I thought, or maybe you thought, or a lot of people thought. We still have to see. They've lost 3 games now that they probably should have won. Maybe that'll even out over the year. Usually when your point differential is still good and total yards and all these different things would indicate it'll right itself. But he now makes Garrett Wilson your number 2 receiver. Garrett Wilson's on pace for 100 plus catches, 1,300 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He's on now your second receiver. Breece Hall's your third option now. Tyler Conklin's your 6th option. And he's top 10 in catches and yards for tight ends. To me, the trust factor, the ability to open up the field, Davante, I think, should play that 5 to 15 yard, 20 yard window. Maybe it's more than that, obviously, on some of the go balls. But generally speaking, those kind of in breakers and back shoulders and things. And now Garrett can kind of roam free. And you can't just play man. The Jets have faced the second most man coverage in the NFL. And they're 31st against man coverage. They are now going to be much, much better against that. Davante is probably the best man coverage beater in the league. So outside of maybe Tyreek, I guess. But yeah, look, man, I think this trade overall, the compensation makes sense. It seems like it's going to be at least a 1.5-year thing. Maybe it's 2.5, depending on Rodgers. But I don't know about you thought about the deal, but to me, this was the biggest no-brainer. And I just think it's crazy to undersell a guy who's an all-pro 12 months ago. That all of a sudden he's who's going to have the game that's going to age the best of probably any receiver. He's not Jerry Rice, but Randy Moss was washed when he came over to New England in 2007, and he was done. And he was 6 months younger than Davante, and went on to have 250, 4,530 touchdowns in like a calendar in a year and a half, right? So we've seen guys go to Oakland or Vegas and die before at the receiver position and come back to life with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I expect the same with Davante.
I thought it was interesting just watching the press conference with Adams and him talking about, he's like
Hating Jimmy Garoppolo.
well, there's that, which, I'm going to hold that against him because I'm just going to hold that against him. But in terms of the communication with Rodgers, and obviously they haven't played together since 2021, and Adams, for those who don't know, is currently staying with Rodgers, staying at his house. Like, that's a whole thing. And they're going over the intricate hand signals that Rodgers wants to have his receivers know. And Rodgers is saying, like, he already knows 95% of it before we're reviewing it, like from his memory. But talking about the on-field chemistry that they have, and Davante said, like, a subtle play here or there is the difference between being 2-4 and 5-1. He's like, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Lazard, the back shoulder drop in the end zone. Like, there are plays that have been there to be made that Jets receivers haven't made. Even as recently as this past game with Mike Williams, and Rodgers called him out for it on the last play, the interception, not running the route properly. And you would assume that if Adams is healthy, he's going to pick that up quickly, and they'll be able to get, if not exactly where they were in 2021, they'll be able to get somewhere close to that and fairly quickly. And can that make a difference for them? I think it can make a difference for them. And
the one thing, Mike, you mentioned that, right? If they get back to even close to that, and who knows, maybe both guys are 5 to 10% worse. Maybe Adams is 5%, Rodgers is 10% worse, which is fine because Davante had like a top 20 receiver stat season ever, and Rodgers had one of the 5 best quarterback stat seasons ever. Like, it's okay if they're a little bit worse. Davante has never played in an offense with this much talent. And I don't think that's hyperbole to say that. We're not talking the 2010 Packers. I mean, the Packers always, at least for me, the last 6-7 years were a bunch of, Aaron Jones and somebody. It was Robert Tonyan. It was Mercedes Lewis in his late 50s, and now he's 6, and it was Davante getting 220 targets a year, and then somebody else kind of having to be the second guy. Like, has he played next to a guy like Garrett Wilson? I don't, unless I'm missing someone. I don't. Maybe late on James Jones, maybe, but I don't know. James Jones then went to the Raiders too. Like, it just feels like there's so much talent that they should be able to. Todd Downing, by the way, and we'll get to this game. Todd Downing was so much better than Nate Hackett has been at all in his Jets tenure.
Good. What? Tell me. Well, that was the next thing on my list. Yeah. Why was Downing better than anything that Hackett provided?
So we talked about Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's route tree on Monday night reflected a guy who we all thought was going to be a 1,510 touchdown guy. Deep crossers, deep in, some run action that got him freed up, getting him in the back. He was in the backfield, a little CD Lamb-ish. I think what he have 8 for 100 plus, and obviously the touchdown that was beautiful. Not sure how the refs on Monday night were the worst. It was the worst referee game in both sides. I mean, I definitely think it was hideous. Downing used 72% plus motion. The Jets have been using 47%. I mean, that is starkly different. They had some misdirection, got Brees outside, got Brees kind of going in the run game. It was his most productive game of the year. So they mixed up some personnel packages. They just did a lot better stuff between the 20s specifically. In the red zone, look, they won 1 for 4. It's the reason they lost the football game. But Brees Hall makes one guy miss. They win that game. Tyron Smith doesn't get called for a hold 5 yards after 5 minutes after the play was over on a really innovative, cool. Braylon Allen was lined up as an I-back and took a fullback handoff into the end zone. I thought that was a really innovative play call. We just didn't see that from the Jets. So the mixture of Downing, Rodgers, look, he's really banged up right now. I mean, I don't think people, no one cares because everyone hates Rodgers, but he's playing through an ankle sprain. He's been taking some big shots. It's weird. He doesn't get hit a lot, but when he gets hit, it seems like he's getting demolished. He did a very good job of a Brady, on Monday night. One sack he saw coming and was just like, no, I'm going to get down. Yeah. Like, good job, dude. That's how Tom lasts.
Live to play another play.
But the offense has looked better. The Jets' run defense is putrid. It's still a problem. They fixed it momentarily, and now guys have gotten hurt again, and they have not fixed it. So that's a big matchup in this game. But I don't know about you, Mike. This game comes down to me of the Jets making kicks because it's cost them 2 football games now, and it's the Steelers can TJ Watt ruin the game? Because if he does, they'll go out of there with a win. Otherwise, starting Russell Wilson, I don't think the Steelers talent-wise are that good. They're very 2022 Jets, like scrappy, really good defense, and they're well coached on the defensive side of the ball, and their quarterback isn't turning the football over. I don't get the Russ thing. I really don't. I know Fields isn't that good, but at least like there's some hope there. And the Jets can't defend running quarterbacks. Russ, to me, what's the upside? Am I missing something here? Like I don't get it.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of with Russ is, well, twofold. One, obviously he is a better passer than Fields, even though, the last couple of years he's not the passer that he once was. In fact, he's not even close to that. And that maybe they're thinking we just don't have an ability to bust a big play in the passing game, because that's not who Fields is. If he's going to bust a big play, it's usually because he's going to have to either run around and scramble and make a play, or run around and tuck it himself and keep it. And maybe they're thinking, okay, maybe he unlocks Pickens, who doesn't have a touchdown this year. Maybe that's maybe it's Austin. Maybe they just feel like there's more plays to be made out there that Fields wasn't making. Fields is pretty hard on himself, by the way. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon, and he was like, wouldn't be a question if I played better. Like, he owned it. He's like, and I think a lot of people think he's certainly played better than he did in Chicago.
He watched Zach Wilson in his own draft class and said, I am not getting myself in hot water like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, he's definitely played better than what we saw in Chicago. There's been some maturity there as a passer, but he still is lacking as a passer. So even if he's made improvements and gone forward in that direction, he's still not forward enough that you say, oh yes, let's build everything around this guy, which is what obviously Chicago was trying to do when they drafted him in the top 10. So I'm wondering if Wilson, they feel like that unlocks some things for them offensively. And then the other part of this is, okay, not that the Jets won't prepare for Fields. They have to. And they've got 6 games of tape of Fields playing quarterback. But let's just say it's going okay, but not great. And the Jets struggled defending running quarterbacks. And all of a sudden in the second quarter, oh, look who's under center. And maybe it's for a series. Maybe Tomlin's looking at it like that to both of these guys. Like, neither one of you is good enough to be the full-time guy. And if I have to try to cobble this together in some way that is a little unorthodox, then I'll do that. And maybe that causes problems. And they're 4-2. So you're already in a nice little place. If you're the Steelers, you start thinking, can I steal a win here? Can I get a win there? And all of a sudden you've got another Mike Tomlin 9-8 season, and maybe you're in the postseason, which, as you mentioned, with the offense built the way it is, that's probably an overachievement for them, but that's how they operate. But so I feel like we talk about this every week. Who's the more desperate team? Well, look, damn well better be the Jets, because
it better be. And also the underrated thing here, one other trade tidbit: Mike Williams. Well, he has not been traded yet. I would be shocked if he is not traded by the weekend. Second straight day, DNP, quote unquote, personal reasons, but was in the injury area. Obviously, we know this is the means to an end. Looked decent first couple of weeks, and some go balls, some back shoulders. It's looked horrible the last 2 weeks, and arguably has been the Jets' worst player in the field in the most crucial moment. So the only other thing I want to kind of mention on the injury front, which do impact this game, Rodgers was a full practice today. Michael Carter's likely going to miss. DJ Reed likely going to miss as well. Everybody else on the Jets side of things should be fine. Zach Frazier, Nick Herbig, Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward's a rest day, but other than that, like, they got a lot of offensive line problems, Pittsburgh, and this might be the Quinn and Williams. I'm still an awesome player game. I think the Jets win this game. I don't think it's a beautiful football game to watch as an observer. I don't think the Steelers are a bad team. I think they could still maybe sneak in as a 7 seed, but this isn't must win for them, for the Jets, between this and then New England next week. They get back to 4-4. We're having a much different conversation about this football team.
And if we're not, heaven help you.
Yeah, you won't be able to find me on this podcast because, yeah, we're not going to go there. But I don't know if that joke's kosher, so I'm gonna eat it. But it was Nick Wright will be quite happy on Fox Sports.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
He's doubling down again today. I ratioed him into oblivion, and now he's doubling down that they won't have an immediate connection. It is. I respect it, man. I respect the Rodgers goggles from the Mount Rushmore of Rodgers haters. It's special stuff.
It is pretty impressive. It's not impressive. The next game on our slate, that's Patriots Jaguars in London. Jags are already there. They've been there since last week, where they lost to the Bears and lost handily to Caleb Williams and company. Patriots flying out on Thursday evening for London. They'll practice there on Friday, and then of course the game, well, for us, will be early Sunday morning, 9:30 kickoff. Both teams are bad football teams.
They're probably the two worst teams in the league, no?
Yeah, both 1-5. There's already been some talk this week from some of the local radio, like, hey, is it better to lose this game because you want to have the best possible draft pick? I would say you have so many holes in so many different places that if you end up finishing third overall, you can still find a player who can make your roster a lot better than it's been. This is for either team. But I guess I'll start. It's Drake May's second start. He popped up on the injury report, so it took exactly 1 week for the Patriots offensive line to compromise the rookie quarterback. And one of the reasons why people were reluctant, at least certain sections of the population of the fan base, didn't want to play him because they didn't want him to be protected. I think the more I kind of got into the season, the more I was like, well, actually his mobility will probably help the offensive line than hurt it. And quite frankly, you're going to get hit in the league because that's what the league is. And you'll either survive it or you don't. And if you don't, that's how it goes. Right. He did though. And some of his yardage and some of his bigger plays in the second half, you kind of call it garbage time, right? The Texans were playing with their food. They were up handily, control the game for the most part, had the breakdown right before the half, get the long touchdown pass to Booty, and then, immediately turn Maye over to start the third quarter. But you sort of talk to the Patriots players this week and offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, and it's like clearly what Maye does is what we were just talking about with the Jets and Davante. Jacoby couldn't put the ball in places that Drake can do. He can't do the things athletically that Drake can do. So while maybe he's seen more, obviously he has seen more NFL football, started a lot more games, there was a limitation to what Van Pelt could do, particularly behind that offensive line. And I said to him straight up today, I asked Van Pelt, does he unlock things for you in the playbook that you had to put away? And he said 100%. He's mobile. He can run around. And he obviously has the arm to make some of these throws. We saw it. There was a sidearm throw to Pop Douglas in the right flat where he went through his progressions. He was off platform. And he just, again, it's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes with his arm strength. I want people to get carried away with that. But he made a throw that a Patriots quarterback hasn't been able to make since Tom Brady was here. Not comparing Maye to Brady, just saying Brady never got credit for how strong his arm was. He could make some throws like that. Maye makes that throw. That continues your drive right before the half and score the touchdown on the beautiful bomb to Booty. So if he's at all limited by the knee injury, which it didn't appear, wasn't wearing a brace at practice on Thursday, and was a full participant in practice both Wednesday and Thursday, if he's not limited, I think we see even a little bit more from Van Pelt and some of the things that he wants to do. And I think you'll see them attack a secondary that is absolutely awful. They're allowing 276 yards passing. That is dead last in the league. Most yards allowed. They play a ton of man. Patriots, Pop Douglas went off 6 catches, 92 yards. That's the most receiving yards a Patriots wide receivers had, since 2022. And it was mostly against man, working underneath, working in the slot. Took the slant for a touchdown. There was a slant earlier in the game that Maye threw behind him that Pop made a nice catch on for 17. But same thing, if he did as he did later in the game and put it right on him, Pop probably scores on that one as well. Now, Patriots scored on that drive anyway, so it's, you're not taking points off the board there. But to the point of he seems to, and the numbers back it up, next gen stats, wherever you want to go, True Media, Pop excels against man coverage. Jacksonville plays man coverage. It's a hint for my prize picks that's coming up, but I expect him to have a big day. And I expect some of the other receivers who've scuffled a little bit to be a little bit more involved against the secondary. And both teams need the win desperately. I think if the Jags don't get the win, Doug Pederson's not coming home on the team plane. I would imagine he'd be fired because they'll be 1-6 after, the owner said this is the best team that we've had since I've been the owner here. So I don't know how it plays out. I'm not good at making predictions, but I think the Patriots have, to me, the feeling of a little bit of life, even though they're 1-5 and have lost 5 in a row, where Jacksonville is 1-5. won a couple weeks ago, but then got absolutely smacked by Chicago and just feels like a dead team walking.
Yeah, this feels like Doug Pederson's last game as the Jaguars coach. You're not going to fire the guy what you're in London, and I know Bill Simmons made the whole joke of they'll give Doug 33C on the way home and coach in the middle seat, which was a rare good one from him and Cousin Sal. But listen, I'm going to be extremely optimistic about the Patriots here, which it might be crazy. To me, they're going to win 2 of their next 3 games, and I know people maybe it's blowing smoke and whatever. Tennessee's horrible. And we said they were going to be horrible. They're even worse than I think we all kind of thought. Yeah. The defense has gotten worse every week. I think it's hard to play the same energy every week knowing your quarterback is going to let you down. The Calvin Ridley, what do you have, eight targets, no catches? I'm not sure. I think that's just as bad as it gets. Jacksonville's horrible. I think everyone on their team has played badly. Literally, like, no one's played well. And then on top of that, I know they're at home a second week in London and everything like that, but a lot of guys talking about quitting, the culture. They're a team that's, look, if New England gets out and Jacksonville gets out to a lead early on, maybe they play differently. But this feels like a team that, like, if the Patriots go up 10-0, they have a good first drive and they get points in the second, the game's over. Like, that, it's just the reality of it. The Patriots are a mess. I'm not telling you they're not. I'm not telling you they're a good team by any means. But I feel like with Drake Maye, and again, I thought his debut was extremely encouraging, but I also think we're doing a little too much. I think there is a little bit of, like, he had 3 touchdowns, and it's like, okay, let's relax a little bit. But
he also turned it over 3 times. Yeah.
He turned it over 3 times, but that's kind of what you want at this point with Drake Maye. Like, I'd rather see the ball go in the end zone. I think you want the opposite of the Zach Wilson experience, where it's like, oh, Zach didn't have a lot of turnovers, but he had his 18 touchdowns through his first 36 starts. Like, I'd much rather Drake maybe like, hey, if we can cut back 10% of the interceptions, he's more of the Jordan Love, like 28 touchdowns, 17 picks, as opposed to, like, I don't know. The Patriots really want to be a guy that's like, they just had Mac Jones, right? Like, I don't think that's what they didn't draft Drake Maye to be that. So I think the Patriots take care of business this week, and I think they take care of business against Tennessee. And I think they're a 4-6 team or 3-6 team going against, right? They'll be 3-6. That they would be 3-6 playing Chicago, who I think, people are going to, I just think they could make their season a little bit more competitive, and maybe they win 5 games this year. And that seems crazy at this point to say that, but this is the part of the schedule to get fat on. Like, I thought, they gave away the Miami game. They gave away Seattle. Is it going to mean anything in 2 years if they win 5 games this year? I don't know. If Drake Maye's your best player on the field on Sunday, like, you're feeling pretty damn good about it. So Jacksonville's defense is terrible. Trevor Lawrence and this offense gives you nothing to, like, get excited about, frankly. And they're a team that looks like, I'm not trying to beat up on the Jags here, but, like, they're about to go into a rebuild. And I don't know how. I mean, they spent more money than they spent an incredible amount of money this offseason, but whatever. We'll do that topic when we rebuild the Jags in Madden, on this podcast in 3 months. But for right now, if you're a Patriots fan, I think you're excited about this game. This is a game. Can we get fat in this game? Can we put up 24 points and hold Jacksonville to 17? Get out of there 24-17. Hey, we're coming home for the Jets. We got the Titans after that. Like, let's steal one of these 2. Let's start building a little momentum. Let's grow as a team here. And again, this is all about Drake Maye. Like, I literally, this game you're watching for one guy and one guy only right now. And that guy's pretty exciting to watch play football through his first start.
Yeah, I'll just tell you. So in the post-game locker room on Sunday, and it is carried over this week, you talk to some of the offensive players and they're smiling.
Yeah.
You're 1-5. You broke 20. You scored 21, which is a season high. You had 20 in the loss to Seattle, but there's a glimmer of hope. There is a realization that I'm actually alive on plays that I wasn't alive on for the first 5 weeks of the season because the quarterback had been beaten up and didn't have the arm to get it to us and to threaten those areas of the field. And like I said, they shelved some of that stuff. And now it's like, no, I can stay alive on this play. And as Kendrick Bourne told us on Thursday, when we get in the scramble drill, he said you're supposed to kind of stay in the quadrant that you're supposed to be working in originally. He goes, but with this quarterback, sometimes you might be able to go in a different place. He goes, not that they coach that, but that this guy is capable of seeing it and putting the ball reasonably close so that you can make a play on it. And again, that's not something they had this year with Brissett. Last whatever 3 years with Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, and that crap fest. Like this is, and certainly not with Cam Newton. Holy crap. Like it's been a long time since they had someone that could do that. And actually in some regards, the ability to move around, they've never had that. Not as long as I've been covering the team. And Brady was great in the pocket, but I'm talking about the ability to get outside the pocket and make plays that way. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I like your 24-17 would be a great way for them. And Drake plays well enough and gets you in the end zone. But I think they're at the point where
they take 6-3.
Win 10-9. You just need to win. Like I really think that the culture needs it. You're trying to reestablish a culture. You need to remember what that feels like because it's been a long time now since you won a game, and they kind of felt a little bit like happy about winning that first game. Like, oh, we're here, and then no, you're not. You've lost 5 in a row. Like you got to get back there and figure out how to do it. That reminds me, we should bring in our great one of our great sponsors, Game Time. Think about like going to a game. Baseball playoffs, the perfect example is as your Yankees inch closer and closer to a possible World Series, and just the vibe. Like it's an awesome feeling to be in the game, the energy you get from the crowd. I don't know if you've seen some of the shots, like Lindor for the Mets when he hit the grand slam last week. There was all these different videos from the stands, and people, put your phone down for God's sakes, watch the game. But okay, you showed it to us, and it was awesome. Like there's people like hugging each other, the excitement, the energy in the stadium. Game Time, they can get you there, and they can get you there for the best price possible. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. I know you and I both have friends that use this. We've used it to get into games and get those great seats. You see the seat view before you buy it, so you can see like, oh, I've never sat in this section of the stadium. What's it look like? And you click it on, it shows you. So that's cool. You're like, all right, yeah, I can handle that angle. I like, that's a better angle to watch a game than I've ever seen before. So you customize your spot. You can do what you need to do here, where you want to sit, what you want to pay, and then the search just narrows it down, presents it to you. You don't have to keep fiddling with this thing and that thing. It just gets you what you need to do. So all you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Oh, yeah, it is game time. And now we're back to our games. Lions, Vikings. This one's a fun one. Very fun. Lions 4-1, Vikings 5-0. Vikings coming off the bye. Lions coming off just a stomping of the Cowboys. But Aiden Hutchinson, their outstanding edge player, first pick in the draft, second pick in the draft, right? 3 years ago, who has really, he was a good player his first 2 years. He has taken the leap and become a great player, a game-changing player. He breaks his leg during the course of the game, late in the game. You could hear a pin drop at Cowboy Stadium. They don't have him likely to be done for the year, although Dan Campbell left open a little glimmer of hope, but I find that one hard to believe. How do the Lions, first and foremost, before we even talk about this game in particular, how do they overcome that loss? Because you talk about the Jets being a team that we built to win now. The Lions are clearly in that same mode, built to win now.
Yeah, it was gross. It was a gross injury. Obviously, the emergency surgery. It's you feel horrible for the person. The rehab's going to be a lot. It's like there's just it sucks, man. It's
that's a tough one. I mean, we see guys get hurt every week. It's a physical demanding sport, but when one of your best players goes down like that, and kind of like a incidental leg whip from his own teammate, and it impacts what we're talking about. It impacts wins and losses. It impacts a team that has real Super Bowl dreams. Now has to sort of recalibrate. How do we become the defense that he made us be without him?
Yeah, it's tough because he's such a heartbeat of that team. He's kind of like represents so much of what Dan Campbell wants to be, and it sucks. It really sucks. And is he the one team that they take on Hassan Reddick? I see the Max Crosby stuff. I'd be really shocked if that happens, but Maybe, never know. But yeah, look, I think the things that I look at with Detroit in this game is is Minnesota really, really, really for real game. 2 weeks to prepare. Detroit's humming right now. Obviously coming off just beating the dog bleep out of Dallas, and Minnesota's kind of overcome every obstacle. The San Francisco game was the check, and then there's the Packers game, and then there's the Jets game, and they've kind of started to progressively look a little bit worse in each week. They've gotten it done for sure, but they've kind of started to get a little bit worse. For me, I'm thinking, can this be is this the week that Detroit kind of says, this is our division still? You might be undefeated, but not anymore, not on our watch. That's just to me where in simple terms, like, what is this Minnesota team? Because I think they're a playoff team. But if you told me they went, I don't know, 4-7 the rest of the year, or whatever, 4-8 or whatever it is, and they just miss out, and it's like it kind of came back to life, I wouldn't tell you you're crazy. And if you told me they went 6-5 the rest of the year, 6-6, and they're 11-win team, and they're the 5 seed, like, I wouldn't tell you you're crazy either. I think Detroit's the best team in the conference, but no Aiden Hutchinson. This is a big, like, if the defense if they're able to still get a pass rush this week, which we'll see, if they can, does that make them hesitate on making a real move for a replacement? If they get gashed and it's like, oh my God, like, we cannot win a Super Bowl without this guy, which they very well might not be able to. Do they go say, I don't know, Vegas, take 3 first-rounders that we assume that are going to be at the bottom of the picks 28, 29, 30 for the next couple of years, to make us, like, we're going to make you say no to that for Max Crosby, or we're going to make the Jets say no to, we really want to give up a second-round pick for Hassan Reddick to give them the pick back they're losing? No. Mm-hmm. But do we think if we could bring in Hassan Reddick for a year while Hutchinson's out and he'll win Super Bowl for us? I don't know. My point being, like, this is a big bleep or get off the pot game for Minnesota, in my opinion, because it'd be a division loss. The momentum would start to kind of carry you in a not great spot. And if you're Detroit, it's like, how big of a move do we need to make? Or is this like I don't know, you go, trade for Brandon Graham. I mean, like, not actually Brandon Graham, but like that level player where it's like, he'll make a little bit of a difference, but not much.
Yeah, it was funny. I think on the pod on Monday, I was just kind of brainstorming teams that are out of it or on the verge of being out of it, and where there are possible pieces that, ranging from the Josh Uche type, who's literally just a pass rusher only guy and is not even the same size class or talent class as Hutchinson, or someone like Jadeveon Clowney. I mentioned Trey Hendrickson. Just, again, we talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. Like, if they were to lose a couple more games before the deadline and he wants a new contract and he's on the wrong side of 30, they just say, you know what, let's just take a second-round pick for him, get off this. And, we know we're going to have to shop, and we're sort of remaking our team on the fly in the offseason. But there aren't a lot of great names out there unless you, to what you said, and Max Crosby, if somehow the Raiders said, screw it, we're a mess and we just need to start thinking about the future and go all in on a rebuild, then. But I still imagine they have to do something. They have to, because aside from Hutchinson, they've been looking for someone on the other side of Hutchinson. They signed Marcus Davenport in the offseason. That hasn't done anything. He's been hurt. Like, they've been desperate to find another guy. Now you don't have Hutch. Feels like you need 2 guys. You're not going to do that at the deadline, but maybe you get 1 guy and at least try to mitigate some of the problems. The couple things here with the quarterbacks. I'm talking about the Vikings being 5-0. I thought Sam was shaky against the Jets.
Very shaky.
Probably as shaky as he's been. Got off to the great start in that game, looked awesome, and then quarters 2, 3, made some big throws late, which has been sort of his thing this year. He's in sort of tight games. He's made some money throws, and he made some money throws in that game. But where is Darnold? A couple weeks now for teams to continue to gather tape on him. Is this real? Is it Memorex? What are we looking at here? That's an old commercial that probably nobody remembers. And the other thing is Jared Goff versus the Brian Flores defense. Goff has been awesome against the blitz this year, averaging 13.3 yards per attempt against the blitz. That is league best. Of course, the Vikings blitz, according to Next Gen Stats, 41.5% of the time. That's 3rd in the league. So he's going to get it. He's going to get the simulated pressure. He's going to get all that stuff. We know he can be sped up, or at least he has been in the past. Are we Is this a new Jared Goff? Is there a more mature Jared Goff that we started to see last year? Is he continuing to take that next step and thrust himself into the conversation of that next tier of quarterbacks that we were mentioning earlier in the show? But he's going to get challenged by Flores. He's going to get challenged by that defense. And I think he has a lot of answers. I think that's part of it too, Will, right? Like Jameson Williams, it took a little while, but Jameson Williams is making a lot of plays for them this year. Laporta is outstanding, even though he's been dealing with some injuries. Amon-Ra gets open, not a game breaker, but he gets open. Tight coverage. He can work tight coverage. So he's got more answers than he's had. And that's, again, why the Hutchinson, you go back to the other side of the ball, that's why the Hutchinson injury hurts so much, because you feel like, man, they've got so many different things.
The defense is just not great. Right. Without Hutch, it's just like,
yeah,
it just doesn't feel the same. Like it just doesn't. I know it's obvious.
If they're league average defensively, with the offense humming, can they get to a Super Bowl? Maybe, but the offense would have to carry a heavy load. We're talking 30 points a game type stuff.
What do you have? What does the Lions have to offer to the Raiders?
Yeah, it would just have to be picks, right?
And if you're the Raiders, like, do you not consider it?
Oh, I would. I mean, especially considering
Max is hurt a lot now. He plays through.
Yes, I was going to say he plays so hard.
He's going into his age 28 year.
Yep.
He's owed. When's the last time he got paid?
He's owed a good chunk of money for sure.
I know he's owed a lot of money. I just don't know when it kicks in.
And I'm curious too with that, because then, and look,
so he's going to need a new deal. Okay. Because he's only got 2 years remaining after this. The cap number, if he's traded this year, the Raiders take on 15 total million. He's got 4 or 5 dead years on this deal. After this year, his base salary is 22 million and 18 million the next 2 years. Cap number in the mid 20s. Nick Bosa is at what, if Michael wants 34, what's Max Crosby, who's a better player, going to want, right?
Right.
So I don't know. Does it take two ones and something? Maybe, I don't know.
It feels
light.
Yeah, it's.
But if you're Detroit,
that's a tough one for Brad Holmes. But look at Holmes, who was under the Les Snead tree in LA. What did LA do? They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They gave up the farm for Jalen Ramsey. They gave up the farm, or gave up a good chunk for Von Miller to try to win a Super Bowl. I wonder now if he looks at it and saying, well, I'm not really adding to that because I don't have Hutch, and not having Hutch, is that worth it? They might just, I could see them just saying, you know what, it's a 4th round pick for Uche, or 5th round pick for Uche. And
that's probably the more realistic.
And a 4th round pick for Clowney. And let's just see if that does enough for us defensively to put us into that.
Oh, that's the smart move. I wonder to myself, like, Crosby's already getting mouthy with, I don't want to be here for a rebuild. They're clearly in a rebuild. The problem is they just paid, like, it's whatever. I don't want to do the Raiders whole thing. They spent money. Like, why did they bring in Cushman Watkins? Like, he's owed so. I mean, I guess it's a very front-loaded deal, but like,
and then he gets hurt.
Then he gets hurt. Now you can't move him. Like, yep. I don't know. The whole thing is. Some teams should trade for Jacoby Myers. By the way, I don't know.
Oh yeah, for 100%. Like, to me, he was, when you started talking about the receivers, we knew Davante was going to get moved. You had a pretty good idea Cooper was going to get moved. Is he the next guy? Like, he could be the next guy. Unless DK Metcalf continues to act like he did in the game against San Francisco. He was a pouty fella during that course of that game. I think he's got 1 more year left on his deal. I'm sure they don't want to do that. You never know with some of these receivers and how volatile they are. If they just decide one day they don't feel like playing for you anymore, we've seen it be a problem for other teams.
Christian Wilkins, not Watkins, owed $33 million in the cap next year.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers has 1 year remaining. Cap number of 14. They reduced it this year, but if he's traded, the Raiders have to eat pretty much all of it. So it's about a $5 million cap hit next year if you take on Myers.
If I was a team that wanted another receiver, or 2 or a 3, and looked at I'd make that phone call. I'd make that 100%. Phone call and keep making that phone call until they agree to what you want to do. So I think we both like the Lions in that game.
Yeah.
Feels that way. Let's go Texans Packers, another great one. Texans 5-1, Packers 4-2. Jordan Love looked like the MCL thing is not much of a problem anymore. He looked great last weekend. Texans, as I mentioned earlier, scored 41 on the Patriots, played Rutherford in that one, got up comfortable, 2 touchdowns, never seemed like they were totally stressed in that game. In fact, I didn't mention it before, but the Texans didn't really throw a lot at Maye. I thought D'Amico Ryans would throw a bunch of different stuff to put his head in the blender. Instead, he was like, we're just going to blitz a little bit, but it'll be a man blitz. Now, we're not doing anything crazy here because I just think he felt that comfortable about the level of talent he had on his side versus what they were bringing to the table. I'm still. I know CJ. He threw another interception. It's sort of he kind of forced it in there. I think if he'd set his feet, maybe he could have made the throw. But I am impressed by him, Will, in the sense that he is like just calm, man. It doesn't. There's a rush at his feet. He takes a little half step back, still steps into the throw. Like he's incredibly poised. He's incredibly accurate. Like seemed to put the ball where he wanted to put it. Especially in moments where, as I mentioned, they get out to the 14-0 lead in the first 2 drives, and he's spreading it all over the place and looks great. And then, Patriots make it a little interesting on a touchdown before the half. They get the turnover, and then boom, hits Diggs. Diggs gives him a little flash, bam, touchdown. Just like he sees what the defense is doing to him and generally does a very good thing with the football when he does it. And the Packers we've talked a lot about, and they've talked a lot about sort of this remade defense under Jeff Hafley, the former BC coach who made the jump to the college ranks to be the DC for LaFleur there. And they're feeling good about themselves and how they're playing. This is a different sort of challenge for them because I think even without Nico Collins, that's a pretty dangerous passing offense. Tank Dell looked outstanding against the Patriots, and he's chewing them up underneath.
Yeah, this is a pretty intriguing 4-game stretch for Houston. I think they probably feel like they could be 4-0, but kind of feels like they're 2-2 through this stretch. At Green Bay, home Indy, at the Jets, home Lions before they go to Dallas. If I'm Houston, if I'm Green Bay, I feel like this game matters more to me. I know they're both non-conference, but Green Bay obviously got off to, a much better start considering, the injury to Jordan Love. They obviously only tripped up once, and that was with Jordan Love, which is the crazy part. But I just feel like this game matters a little more to me. I'm at home. Houston's not fully healthy. I'm starting to play really good ball right now. The weather's going to suck. It's 50s and rainy, and playing an indoor team, out at home. A little bit of a statement like, we're feeling good now. We're locked in and loaded. And if Minnesota or Detroit trips up, it's a big, you gain 2 games in a sense, especially if Minnesota loses. That's huge for Green Bay. They need Minnesota to keep losing, obviously, already having lost that tiebreaker. So, yeah, and I feel like from a Houston perspective, it's keep doing what you're doing. Joe Mixon being back, he looks the best he's looked in years. We'll see if that lasts, but at the moment he's looked great. No Nico has allowed a lot of other guys to get some burn, but yeah, I just feel like Houston's a team that has been really impressive, but also not like wowed you a lot. But they've, again, they wowed you, I guess, last week. But, generally, if I'm Houston, like this would be a pretty big statement when they go into Lambeau like that and take care of business, move to 6-1. They're keeping pace for that 1 seed. And, again, if you go ahead and lose, it's a non-conference game, again, tougher, Indy at home, you should take care of business. You're probably 6-2 going into that Jets game. Jets and Lions, worst case, you're 6-4, best case, you're 8-2. This can be a fun one. 2 really good young quarterbacks. Obviously, Love only in year 2, really as a starter, although he's obviously far older than Jordan Love, than TJ Stroud. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by this one. I think this might be the aesthetically best game to watch this weekend.
Yeah, it sort of has that sort of vibe to it. I'm curious to see what the Packers do with Anderson and Hunter coming off the edge.
Yep.
Those guys were combined for 4 sacks. Anderson had 3 in the game. Patriots didn't maybe do enough with help to keep those guys out of Drake May's face or sticking their helmet in his back. Or there's the one shot where he's throwing the ball and he's getting absolutely destroyed and the elbow is going in the wrong direction. The shoulder's going the wrong direction. And again, as we mentioned, he's on the injury report. Drake May is this week for the first time. It's a knee, not a shoulder, but wouldn't surprise me if there was an okey doke there either, because that arm didn't go that way and he reached for his right arm after the strip sack by Hunter. So those guys are disruptive as hell. And as I mentioned, they didn't run a lot of games with him. So I'm curious if D'Amico comes up with a little bit more, gets out of the vanilla and comes up with something a little bit spicier for Jordan Love and for that offense, which has been humming at a pretty good rate this season. A couple other ones that we want to hit before we get out of here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Prize Picks. And while I'm reading Prize Picks, you better make sure you come up with your prize. I got a few good ones.
I got two good ones. For you. I'll find my third.
So this is the CLNS Media Networks. It's our fantasy app. It's go-to. It is tremendous. Select between 2 to 6 players. You can win up to 100 times your money. And of course, we have this great deal going on. Download the app today. Prize Picks. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, use the code CLNS to get $50 when you deposit just $5. You don't even have to win the $5. They're just sticking $50 in your account. That's fantastic. I got to tell you, red hot. I'm just letting you know, red hot. Last week, huge. I got my picks coming up. You're going to want to tune in for that. Follow along. I can't promise you that you're going to win, but I'm just telling you, I'm feeling, I got the vibes. I got the good vibes going.
Mike, here's a good question. Here's a trivia question for you.
Yes, shoot.
Who are the top two guys in the NFL this year in PFF's big time throw rate? If you had to guess, who had the most
PFF big time throw rate?
Who has the most big time throw? The top two guys.
I'm going to say Sam.
No. They're more obvious than you think they are.
Okay.
One's obvious, the other one I cover one of them.
So Rodgers is one of the two, huh?
The other one's definitely the second best quarterback in football.
Josh Allen.
Yeah. Josh 13, Rodgers 12. Would you have guessed Rodgers was on there?
I would not have.
It's because he's made
and look, I have not. I said it like. I mean, he still makes every freaking throw.
He's going to be able to throw the football until he's 65 years old.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, you feel like really, Brady. I feel like if you put Brady in there now, don't move, kid. But can you throw the ball like you normally? Can you drive that deep out or come back? Yeah, I think you can.
Next week, we're going to do 5 minutes on the ridiculous rules Brady has.
Oh my god,
it's not worth it now. We'll get to the last couple. The one I want to hit on, which I think we have not talked a lot about because they're terrible. We got Browns Bengals this week.
Yes.
It's not going to be a fun game to watch. The Bengals should take care of business there. They're on the road to being back. Although they did not look good at all, I thought, on Sunday night. Defensively, they did, but you know who they were playing. That said, this has got to be Deshaun's last start, right? Like it. I
don't think so. It should be. It should have been his last start 3 weeks ago.
So here's a better question: if you're the Patriots, would you say give us a 1, and we'll take on the contract and we'll cut him? Because I would want more than a 1. Because if you're the Patriots, you're like, we'll get Travis Hunter and we'll take Mason Graham and we'll start rebuilding this thing up real nice.
Yeah, it's actually somebody mentioned this too. We do a membership Q&A in Boston Sports Journal, and someone mentioned that to me. Would you do it? And I was like, oh, I'd think long and hard about it. Now their pie in the sky thing was like 2 1s and a 2 or something like that's not. I can't imagine that would happen because not only are you setting back the franchise with the money that you're having to eat and go find another quarterback and all that stuff, but then you're giving away all your draft picks to try to build up the team. You're basically saying, we're going to suck the next 3-4 years, at the very least. And then the sort of the long-term damage losing, top picks like that would do. But you told me a 1 and a 3, 1 this year or 3 next year, something like that. And I look at my cap situation where I think the Patriots, well, right now they're $38 million under the cap, which, would assume you're going to roll almost all of that over. Maybe somebody gets a late deal done, an extension at some point between now and the end of the season, but that's probably all going to roll over. And I think they would be around $100 million under the cap.
Patriots are dying out. People take their money. Why not buy another first-round pick?
I would absolutely think about doing it. Because again, when you start looking at the free agent list, it's not, it's not overwhelming. Their best path to becoming relevant again and becoming a good team and a playoff team is to continue to build through the draft. And then you sprinkle in a signing here and a signing there, maybe build some veteran depth, which is one of the, like, if I have just go back to them real quick. If I have a bone to pick with part of their roster build this year, I mean, there's many bones to pick, but like they had all this money. And when they got the cut down day, there was like 43 or 44 guys worth being on the roster. They could have plucked a few veteran guys here or there off the free agent market that, again, slight overpay, but for 1 year, I'm paying this guy $3.5 million. He's a $2 million player, but I know I have a better backup or a guy who can at least give me 10 snaps at, say, off the ball linebacker, which has been a big problem for them this year, especially with the injuries. And like, they don't have that. And they're just shuffling guys off the street, and it's contributed to being 1-5. But I would 100% think about doing that. Do you really think if they stink this week that he'll pull the plug on Deshaun?
No, I think someone's going to have to force them to do it, and it's going to be ownership and Andrew Berry, and I just don't think they're ready to do it yet.
No,
I think they'd rather go down and have the coach have to get replaced, which is insane.
I think that's absolutely where we're headed.
Yeah, and
blame it on the coach. They blamed it on the offensive coaching staff last year, which is why all those guys got fired. Which is why part why Alex Van Pelt is the offensive coordinator in New England. And who's the next guy on the list? It would be Stefanski taking the bait for that, because they're only paying him whatever $10-12 million a year, and they've got hundreds of millions of dollars guaranteed to Deshaun. Just foist him on someone else and hope that they can fix him. The other game we want to hit real quick: Giants and Eagles. Again, probably not going to be that great of a football game. Eagles continue to absolutely flummox me. One week to the next, I have no idea what you're going to get. Jalen Hurts is not the same quarterback we saw 2 years ago, and he fooled me. I really did truly believe he was going to be a top 5 to 8 quarterback. He's not that. He's probably not even in the second group right now, which I know probably bothers people, but I feel like a lot has to be right for him. But this is about Saquon Barkley playing his old team of the Giants. We saw the Hard Knocks in the offseason, and the owner Mara being like, I don't know if I can stomach seeing him on another team. Well, guess what? You get to do it, and I take more. Take more on Saquon Barkley for everything: yards, touchdowns, receiving yards, touches, whatever you can get. Take more.
Yeah, I'll do this, and I'll lead myself right into our prize picks, because I want to beat you to it. I feel very good about my 3.
All right.
Yeah, I just think this is a game where the Giants have every right to be just as annoyed at Saquon as Saquon does at the Giants, and it's not popular. There'll be some bad blood in there. I'll be interested to see how the crowd reacts. Other than that, this game is kind of a poop fest, at least for the time being, until the Giants show they can kick field goals and score points. And on the Eagles side of things, Sirianni is the most insufferable person in football right now. He has been for years, and it's even worse now. My 3 prize picks, Mike. I'm going to go more Jalen Waddle in yards. I'm going to go more Davante Adams in total yards or catches, however you want to operate there. He's going to get peppered with targets. Rodgers is going to try to make him look good. And I'm going to go more rushing yards on Justin Fields. I have a feeling they will use him in that Tim Tebow-ish role, and he'll run for, X amount of yards, and we'll be like, why didn't they just start him? So those are my 3 prize picks.
I like those. Pop Douglas, more yards, 44.5. If you want to do, you can't use 2 from the same team in one. More 4.5 in receptions is where I would go with Douglas. So 44 more on that, 4.5 receptions more on that. How about Chris Godwin? Mike Evans all of a sudden on the injury report, more receiving yards, 72.5. And then, even though I was just criticizing Jalen Hurts, there's no question he's going to throw the ball to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown is good for at least one explosive, it seems like, every week when he's playing. 70.5, so more on 70.5. And that's it. I like it. I feel like there's money to be had there from the selections that we've just put forth. That's going to wrap up this edition of the All 32. We will be back on Monday to break down Week 7, and we'll get look. Will be a depressed person if the Steelers beat the Jets.
I'll be a mess.
I remain hopeful that I will be able to write about something. Write about a win. It's been very rare that I've been able to write about wins the last 2 seasons, as the Patriots have lost 18 of their last 23. So that's going to do it. Reminder to like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review, all that good stuff as we continue to build the All 32 brand. But that is it for now. We'll see you on Monday.